Hey, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't done so, why don't you hit the little subscribe button right there? It does help us out. Have you been looking at the PS5 and wondering if it was right for you? Or just wondering about some of the games or the system in general? Well, we've had a few days to spend with it, and we'd like to tell you our impressions of it. So stick around and we'll tell you what we think. Hey, welcome back to the channel, and thanks for joining me on the review of the PlayStation 5. I've had a couple days to spend with it, and it has a lot of really good features. Some features that I normally don't expect from Sony. And there's a couple bumps and hiccups, nothing major, but we'll get into all that in a minute. But the first thing I would like to look at is our new controller. This thing, I know in my last video of the unboxing, which I'll put right up here, I ended the video a little short, and I actually came back once I started Astro's Playroom. This controller is really more than I would expect, and I'm glad to see Sony stepping up their game on the controller. It has a great feel. It's rigid. It does not feel cheap. It's probably the best controller they've put out so far. The haptics in it are somewhat like Nintendo has done with the high def feedback, but it's more than that. The adaptive triggers, you know. We'll look at Astro's Playroom, and you can see that the triggers become hard to press and then go. And it's just amazing. Also in a game like Spider-Man, where you shoot your web and it's easy to press, but then whenever it grabs in the game and it's giving you feedback like you're pulling on the rope, it's kind of hard to understand and hard to describe, but it really does take the game to a different level. And on a certain point, you don't even think about what this controller's doing and adding to the experience and adding to the game, but it really does. Now, the microphone, I know some people are worried that, you know, Sony will be listening into everything, but this is a mute button right here in the face of it. You can mute it in the software if you don't like it. And of course, if you really don't want to deal with it, you can put a piece of tape over it or crack the controller open and unplug the thing probably. Now, the new haptic feedback in Astro's Playroom, obviously this game, it came free with the system, and it is truly a tech demo for what this controller can do. When it's in your hand, one of the scenes will show it building up pixels to build the controller on the screen. And you can truly feel it come up through the controller and build the controller. It's no longer just a rumble. It's truly a haptic feedback. And it's just, you know, it just changes the whole feel of what this is. And I don't mean to spend so much time on the controller itself, but it's really leaps and bounds above what Sony has done in the past. Now, Nintendo has always done some very innovative things. They have never had a controller that's a repeat of their last controller, going the whole way back from the NES. It was just a basic box with a few buttons and a D-pad. Then the Super NES got us a couple more buttons. And let's see, the N64, it was a completely different configuration with a manual stick and a D-pad and you know, all the extra buttons and triggers. And then into our GameCube, where we had, you know, a couple analog sticks, and then into the Wii, where we had the Wiimotes and they're motion controlled, and they had their, you know, they were the first one that had a little speaker in it. Not a lot of games took advantage of it, but it was there. And then, you know, with the Switch, with the high def feedback and a lot of extra features, infrared and whatnot. This is really, Nintendo's always been the playful system, and they've always had playful controllers and of course very cartoony games. But this really is reminiscent of what Nintendo has done. And I hate to compare it to Nintendo, but it's kind of the truth. The other feature that they've put in it is the speaker. And in games like Astro's Playroom, you know, when you're walking around and the little robot feet hit a metal surface, you know, you'll get a little tinging sound out of this. And between the sound on the screen and the sound out of the controller, it just adds another layer to the experience and to the game. And, you know, as I've been playing the PS5, I really kind of find myself sitting with a smile. It's just a very nice experience. The next point I'd like to get to are the games. You know, of course, you know, I grabbed Sackboy before, you know, I even had my PS5 because I liked Little Big Planet. And, you know, it's a nice adventure. Not the typical Little Big Planet game, a little bit more platformy or adventure-y, kind of like Mario 3D World or one of those kind of games. But to be very honest with you, old school gamers like me appreciate those kind of games. You know, the world seems to be full of hate and violence anyway, not that I'm denouncing any of this, but there's just so many games that are like Call of Duty or any of those, you know, first-person shooter. So I'm glad to see this kind of stuff coming out. And, you know, they're a lot of fun to play. The other point with the PS5 has been backwards compatibility with PS4 titles. So I've tried a few of my old games and they seem to load up fine. So then I grabbed a few limited run titles. Let's see if we can get focused in on that. Probably not today. So since this is a non-standard release, I figured this would be a good test. And of course, being a kid of the 80s, Dragon's Lair was a biggie for me. I do have this also on a few other platforms, and over the years I've had it, you know, on my iPhone and whatnot. So anyway, but I figured with a limited run, this happens to be copy 183. I figured this would be a real test to see if it's going to work or not. But you know what? I put it in the drive, it installed it, a patch came down, and this runs just fine on our PS5, which I'm glad to see. Now, on the point of some games that don't work, when I originally booted it up on my original unboxing video, I was pointing out a lot of my VR games. Unfortunately, today, as I scrolled through the screens, there was a lot of the VR games with the little no icon up in the corner. Now, at this point, I'm not 100% sure if that just means they don't work because it's not seeing my PSVR, because I don't have my adapter yet. Requested the camera adapter early on, well before I had my PS5, but you know, it still hasn't come. So I'm kind of missing my VR system. So I don't know if that means it's not going to be available, they're not going to work, but I'll be highly disappointed because as of right now, there's only a few games that I've noticed that still don't have that icon on it, the no icon. And, you know, Sony did put this out saying it will be compatible with the majority of the games and with the VR system. But as of now, as of this recording, we don't truly have a VR system because they haven't released the adapter. And of course, it doesn't work with the new camera. And a lot of the games are now reporting that they're not functioning. So I'm hoping that will get addressed, and we'll talk about that in a later video. Now, one other major issue that I find with the PlayStation 5 We have a power and an eject button. Which is which? Who knows? You got two buttons, basically the same size, with a teeny little painted on icon, and you can't see them unless if you get right up on it. Sony, do something about that. Now to address the elephant in the room, so to speak. There have been a lot of reports of these systems crashing when left in suspend mode. I personally have been leaving mine in suspend mode and have not had an issue. But yesterday, there was an 850 or so megabyte update to the OS. And unfortunately, the only thing Sony told us about it is that it was stability and performance improvements. I have yet to see any change in my system. The PS5 on launch day was available with some very good titles, such as Sackboy's Adventure and Spider-Man and a few others. Yes, some of them were PS4 games that were revamped to take advantage of the hardware. Spider-Man in general does a very good job. It uses the ray tracing, and if you have a 4K TV, it really shines. But on top of that, I already showed you that, things like Dragon's Lair, which is a limited run game, they will run on the system. Also, moving saves for games like Persona 5 from my PS4 to my PS5, although it wasn't automatic, it was very simple. My PS4 had already been backing up my saves. All I had to do is open the menu for the game, download the content from my cloud, and my game saves were right there. I know with another one of the systems that's just recently come out, the Xbox, they released it. There really wasn't anything available. But the other big surprise to all the Sony fans who have gotten their PS5 was the inclusion of things like Astro's Playroom that was already on the hard drive and ready to roll. But for PS Plus members, there was more than 20 games available right from the beginning. And these aren't bad games. Yes, they were PS4 games, but they were made available for free to the PS Plus members. And these were big games. God of War, Persona 5, which I'm a little upset about because I paid for mine. But they were all made available to PS5 owners from day one. Now, if they can just solve the problem with my VR, I'd be a happy person. Anyway, I think that covers just about everything. The PS5 is a great system. If you're a Sony fan and you can get your hands on one, I would highly recommend it. Don't forget to get the one with the physical media in it. It does help support some of our local used game stores, which for the collectors is an important thing. Hey, if you've got any comments or any thoughts or any rebuttals to anything I've said, make those comments down below. Also, if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, and thanks for joining us.